Most people think failure is something you fall into. A missed deadline, a bad decision, a moment where things just don't work out. But what if failure wasn't accidental at all? What if it was designed? What if one man took an ancient human fear, falling short, wrapped it in the language of science, productivity, and self-improvement, and sold it to the entire modern world? This is the story of the man who invented failure and convinced us it was our fault. In the early days of industrialization, work had a problem. Factories were growing, cities were expanding, machines were replacing muscles. But there was one thing capitalism couldn't fully control yet. People. Workers got tired, they slowed down, they made mistakes. And worst of all, they couldn't be easily compared to one another. If you wanted to extract more output, you needed a way to measure humans. That's where Frederick Winslow Taylor enters the story. Taylor wasn't a factory owner. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't even particularly charismatic. He was an engineer. And like many engineers, he believed that every problem had an optimal solution, including people. Taylor watched workers the way a scientist watches lab rats. He timed their movements, measured their steps, counted how long it took to lift a shovel, turn a bolt, walk across a room, and then he had a realization that would quietly reshape the modern world. If there is a perfect way to do a task, then anything slower isn't just different, it's wrong. In Taylor's system, there was no such thing as doing your best. There was only the standard, and anything below it became something new. Failure. Before Taylor, failure was situational, contextual, often shared. After Taylor, failure became personal, a number, a deficit, a mark against you. He called his system scientific management. It sounded objective, neutral, rational. But embedded inside it was a dangerous idea that would spread far beyond factories. If productivity can be calculated, then worth can be measured. And if worth can be measured, then people can be ranked. Taylor's ideas moved quickly. Factory owners loved them. Governments adopted them. Schools studied them. Because once you reduce human effort to data, control becomes easy. Soon, classrooms began to look like factories. Rows, bells, standardized tests, not to help children learn, but to measure who was ahead and who was behind. The workplace followed the same logic. Performance reviews, quotas, benchmarks, KPIs. Everywhere you went, invisible rulers appeared. You weren't just working, you were being measured. And quietly, a new kind of fear entered everyday life, the fear of underperforming. But Taylor didn't stop at work. Over time, his thinking seeped into culture itself. By the mid-20th century, self-help authors picked up the torch. Psychologists refined it. Consultants monetized it. The message evolved, but the core stayed the same. If you're not improving, you're failing. If you're not optimizing, you're falling behind. If you're not exhausted, you're not trying hard enough. Failure was no longer an event. It became an identity. Experts began to notice something disturbing. Productivity was rising. But so were anxiety, burnout, and depression. People weren't just afraid of losing their jobs, they were afraid of not being enough. Because the system didn't just measure output, it measured you, your focus, your discipline, your ambition, your worth. And if you ever slowed down, if you ever struggled, the conclusion was already written. You failed. Not the system, not the expectations, you. Here's the cruel irony. Taylor believed his system would make life better. Shorter work days, fairer pay, less waste. But what he underestimated was human psychology. When you turn performance into morality, people never stop running. They chase metrics that keep moving, goals that reset the moment they're reached. Success becomes temporary, failure becomes permanent. And someone always profits from that tension. Consultants sell solutions. Apps track habits. Courses promise breakthroughs, all built on the same quiet assumption that something is wrong with you, that you need fixing, that if you just try harder, you'll finally deserve rest. But rest never comes, because the system needs you tired. It needs you striving. It needs you blaming yourself instead of questioning the structure. And this is the part most people never realize. Failure, as we know it today, is not a natural human condition. It's a manufactured one, designed to keep people productive, compliant, and perpetually dissatisfied. Taylor didn't invent laziness. He invented the fear of falling behind, a fear that now follows us everywhere, into our phones, our relationships, our sense of self. We track steps, track sleep, track productivity, track progress, always watching ourselves, as if someone else might be watching too. And maybe that's the most unsettling legacy of all. At some point, the factory manager moved inside our heads. So here's the question we're left with. If failure was designed, can it be unlearned? Or are we destined to spend our lives chasing standards we never agreed to? The man who invented failure is long gone, but his system is still here, quietly asking one question every single day. Are you enough yet?